Okay, so in this episode, I'm going to show you how to get a step sequencer that will work very similar to how the step sequencer in FL Studio works. And I'm going to show you how to use it for your drums and to make your life a whole lot easier instead of using the Cakewalk timeline to do drums. Okay, so before we go into that, I'm going to show you what problem we're solving and why not to do it that way. And I'm going to show you how to solve that problem. So traditionally, if you're sequencing drums in the timeline, you would do something like this. You would choose your sample, drag it and drop it on the timeline, and then you'll start sequencing it. I'm just going to do an example. Let's say 4 on the floor with the kicks. And I'm just going to grab any snare. Right, I'm just going to grab this snare and I'm going to start sequencing that snare. Okay, you get the picture. And then you get something like this. So now the problem comes with, let's say I don't like the snare and I want to change the snare. The problem is now I would have to drag a new snare and replace that whole sequence all over again and then delete my old snare. And then now I've replaced it. Okay, so to avoid all of this, we are going to utilize two methods. First of all, we are going to drag and drop our samples into a VST drum machine. In my instance, I'll be using Sitala. And the second thing we're going to do is use a MIDI step sequencer that is built into Cakewalk to trigger the drum samples. And that way we can swap out our drum samples at any point that we want to swap them out without disrupting everything we've done so far. Okay, so the VST that I'm going to use is called Sitala. It's completely free and I'll leave the link in the description. Here it is here. And as you can see, it has about 16 pads and you use them to trigger sounds. So the nice thing about Sitala is you can drag and drop your own samples into it and you're not only stuck with the ones that come with it. So for instance, if I want to put my own kicks, just drag my own kick, put it in the on the pad. If I want to replace the snare, just go to my snare, drag it and replace it. And I've got my own pads. All right, so now let's use them with the step sequencer. So now in order to trigger your samples with the step sequencer, you need to highlight the track first, go over to the timeline, right click on the timeline, go to view, press step sequencer, and there you have it. And it looks very similar to what you would get in FL Studio. And you can increase the number of beats that you want and the number of steps within the beat, which is pretty cool. And it allows you to change the parameters of the sample as well, such as the velocity, the duration, the swing, and if you want to flam. And the nice thing is you can draw this out right on over the pad. So that's pretty neat. Okay, so now let me just put something together. So as you see, as I'm putting the steps on the sequencer, it automatically gets registered on the timeline. So it's pretty simple and pretty straightforward. Let's just say I want to add hi-hats. You have the option of saying full every 4. Full every 5, full every 6, whatever you want. All right, so now what we can also do is, let's just say I no longer want this particular hi-hat and I want to change it with another one. So without disrupting everything I've done already, I can just swap out the sounds with whatever I want. And this is only possible because you're triggering the samples using MIDI notes. All right, so that's cool. And one more thing I want to show you is everything right now is going through the main VST channel, as you can see on the console. But what if I want each pad to be an individual track? So what if I want the kick to have its own track, the snare to have its own track, the hi-hat to have its own track? So that's something you can also do easily by going over to the VST. You click the 3 dots, and if you go to audio output, you say 16 channel output, 1 channel per pad. So you click on this. So what this enables is that each pad is going to be its each individual output. And unfortunately, this is something that you would have to route manually. It won't happen automatically. And the nice thing is you can do all the work right now. We can manually route everything right now and save it as a template so that next time you won't have to keep doing over and over and over. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do this. So for now, all I want is the kick, the snare, and the hi-hat. So I'm just going to input 3 audio tracks: kick, snare, and the hi-hat. So I don't want any sound to come out of the VST Sitala, since I want all this audio to be coming out of the audio tracks that I've just created. So what I'm going to do is change the master output to 0, none. What you can also do is decrease it on the console. And so now I'm going to start with the routing. So I want the kick to come through on this channel. So how you do that is you go to input, you go to Sitala, and the kick is on pad number 1, and pad number 1 is output number 1. So you go to the stereo track 1, and there you have it. And I want the snare to come through on this track. So you change the input of this track to output number 2 because my snare is on pad number 2. And I'm going to do the same with the hi-hat. My hi-hat is on pad number 3. So I'm going to change this to output number 3. And as you can see, all the pads. So as you can see, when I hit the kick, it triggers the kick channel. When I hit the snare, it triggers the snare channel. When I hit the hi-hat, it triggers the hi-hat channel. And the cool thing about all of this is I don't have to do this all over again. Once I've done it, you've done it. And you can just save your project as a template, and you just open up the template every time you want to create a new song with the routing already done for you. So if you want to neaten all of this up, what you can do is you can put everything in a folder track. So you do that by right clicking and insert a track folder. You can name that folder whatever you want. I'm going to call mine drums. And I'm just going to highlight all of these tracks. Then I'm going to drag them into this folder. And there you have it. All my drums are now in one folder. And I can trigger them. And there you have it. As simple as that, you can sequence your drums in a step sequencer just like you would in FL Studio. So if this video helped you out, please make sure that you like and subscribe. It really helps boost the channel to reach a wider audience. And until the next one, I'll see you later.